welcome to this week's edition of Cyclone Insiders alongside Hawn, Wong, and Taylor Mankle. I'm Fiddelke. All right, guys, on Thursday and Friday, 8 teams advanced to the Sweet 16, some pretty handily, and some came down to the final seconds. Let's start with a team that actually decimated their way into the Elite 8 in Kentucky over West Virginia. Taylor, was it more Kentucky dominating that game, or was it more West Virginia not really even showing up?
Well, I think it was a little bit of both, and I think the main thing that did it is the fact that I picked West Virginia to win that game.
I forgot you did that, yeah.
But in all seriousness, it was really the height of Kentucky simply outweighed any person on the bench or on the floor for West Virginia. It was totally non-contest here, as well as you start at the beginning of the game. West Virginia, they're trying to do a full court press on Kentucky. They're trying to get those steals, get those turnovers, and you have a game where the refs are calling touchy fouls. West Virginia didn't have a chance after that.
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit of both. West Virginia had 7 turnovers in that first half, and also in that first half, Kentucky went on runs of 16-0 and 10-2, which I thought led to that early blowout and that early, I guess, halftime lead. And then it continued in the second half. West Virginia went 8 minutes before they made their first field goal in the second half. And you can't beat a Kentucky team if you can't score. And then also, lastly, I thought they would have had a chance if they forced Kentucky to their season average of 20 turnovers per game. That's what I said last week. They only were able to force 10 on Kentucky. So I thought it was a little bit of both. Hawn, what did you think? More West Virginia or more Kentucky?
Yeah, I'm going to give this one to Kentucky. You know, obviously West Virginia, they had the talent to get to the Sweet 16 like they did. But when they were up against Kentucky, it was just, you know, you're talking, Taylor, about the hype of this Kentucky team. Let's talk about the hype of their bigs alone. You know, you have Dakar Johnson off the bench, Anthony Towns and Cauley Stein, you know, starting in that lineup. It's in that box score, you're not really going to see how dominant they were, only collecting 7 blocks. But the West Virginia bigs were only able, they took 22 shots in the paint, making 4 of them.
Yeah.
You're going to make 4 shots in the paint against Kentucky. That's just not going to win you games. It's more of a presence for Kentucky and that mindset from West Virginia that they're not going to be able to get in the paint. What else are we going to do?
Yeah, and you talk about those blocks. Just because they only had 7 blocks doesn't mean that their height really affected them. The height alters shots and affects many different aspects of the game other than just what shows up on the stat sheet. So, all right, let's look at the other game in the Midwest, guys. That was a little closer. What was Notre Dame's 81-70 victory over the Shockers of Wichita State. Hawn, was that more of the Shockers slipping in your point, or is that the Irish coming in strong?
I think it is Wichita State slipping here. You know, the Shockers, when they played Kansas the game before that, they definitely looked like the 2013-14 Wichita State team that went, you know, that went in this tournament and you know, they went undefeated for a while. But they didn't play as effective and as hard as they did against Kansas. Because this Notre Dame team, when they played, they were beatable. You can see they didn't make a lot of the shots that they kind of normally make, and they didn't, you know, pressure the ball as much as they like to. But for Wichita State to win this game, you need Van Vliet, you need Ron Baker. They need to step up, and Van Vliet kind of did. He shot 9 for 20, which you know, wasn't great, but it's still it's a good turnout for him. But Ron Baker only making 2 shots. Although those were 3s, only 2 shots he made all game.
Yeah, see, I thought that was a key thing in my opinion too, was Ron Baker, known for his scoring, and him and Van Vliet, a great backcourt in the NCAA nation. But I thought last week, I said Wichita State was known for the defense. Notre Dame has the 2nd best field goal percentage in the nation. Something had to give on either end. And Wichita State gave themselves a chance on the offensive glass with 15 offensive rebounds. But in the end, the Shockers couldn't keep up with the Fighting Irish. They're, you know, 2nd best team in the nation field goal percentage, shot 56% from the field. So
yeah, and I think it's really important to note that how Jerian Grant played in this game. Jerian Grant, the by far best player on Notre Dame, didn't play that well. They only allowed him to shoot 8 field goals, but he made up for it in the assist category. Finished with 11 assists in that game, really. And that showed me what Notre Dame could do with their other players. They had at least 3 other players in double figures, one with 20 points, his biggest in the tourney thus far. That was something that I needed to see in order to believe Notre Dame deserved to keep going. Is you saw in those first 2 matchups against Butler and Northeastern, they barely squeaked by in those. In this one, it was a little bit more of a better team, obviously, in Wichita State, but a better ending deficit of that 11 points, and you saw that with their best player not having a very good game.
Yeah. All right. So let's move to the East bracket. Louisville is not really known for their scoring. They're really known for their scoring droughts. I had my doubt in them. As you see, the final score there, 75-65 over NC State. I had NC State in this game. But Taylor, how was Louisville able to beat a Wolfpack team that really had momentum coming in this game after knocking off #1 seed Villanova?
It was all about defense in this one. Louisville came in the 5th most efficient defense in the nation. In the tourney, they were one of the best, and that really did it for this game. As you said, Alan, it was not the best shooting for either team. Neither team are very great shooting, but Louisville probably had one of their best shooting games of the season here with 75 points, and that sounds pretty ridiculous when we talk about Big 12 teams like Oklahoma and Iowa State getting up into the 90s and whatnot on their best night. Louisville, 75 is quite a notch there, and obviously that coaching behind Rick Pitino was a great part of that. NC State held to 38% from the field in that game, and of course they had Louisville had a couple extra contributors other than the always there Harrell and Roser. They had Wayne Blackshear and Quentin Snyder, both with double figures in that game, which made the difference.
Yeah, you talk about the 75 points they put up. They shot 50% from the field. If you told me that last week, I probably wouldn't have picked NC State like I did. And then also, if you look at the points in the paint, Louisville scored 40 points compared to NC State's 24. It's hard to lose a game when almost half of your points come within the paint.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with both of you. This Louisville defense, they're strangling. You know, the Wolfpack here, they could put up some points, and they definitely put up balanced scoring. You know, in all 5 positions. But for me, Louisville has a great counter to some balanced scoring because they can also defend at all 5 spots. And I'm gonna give Montrezl Harrell here. He's one of those players. He just declared for the draft actually this past week. You have the bigs like we said, the Kentucky bigs. We have Joel Okafor, lottery pick, but for me, Montrezl Harrell, he's going to go, you know, mid-first round. I don't know if he's quite lottery, but he's going to be a good asset to a team because he has a lot of hustle, a lot of athleticism that, you know, big men, they're going to get tired. Montrezl Harrell just doesn't seem tired a lot, and that's a very solid contributor to any defense, especially this Louisville defense.
Absolutely. I think Montrezl Harrell will actually be able to perform great at the next level. Not a lottery pick, as we all three probably assume, but he will make a name for himself in the NBA. So. All right, on the other end of the East bracket was Tom Izzo's Michigan State team winning a low-scoring affair over the Oklahoma Sooners, 62-58, as you guys see. Again, I had Oklahoma because of their ability to rebound offensively. That wasn't the case. But, Hawn, coaching experience, I guess, with Tom Izzo compared to Lon Kruger really showed here in this game.
I definitely agree. You know, Tom Izzo, I'm going to call him Mr. March. He just knows how to get through, you know, these March brackets, and he definitely is a big reason to why this Michigan State team was able to kind of control what Oklahoma wanted to do. You know, we know Oklahoma really well because they're in the Big 12, as is Iowa State. Oklahoma loves to run. They also want to run and get fast break points like Iowa State, but Oklahoma tried to do that, but when they tried during this game and against this Michigan State team, what really happened was they just rushed shots.
Yeah.
They put up quick shots, didn't want to, I mean, they wanted to pass it to get open shots, but they wanted someone to get hot, get on fire, whatever you want to call it, especially Buddy Hield, but he just wasn't quite able to do that because of the Michigan State coaching. And Tom Izzo just, you can just see it in his team. They wanted to slow this game down, run their own tempo instead of Oklahoma's.
Like you said, I did see a sign that game that said January, February, Izzo, April, May. He is Mr. March almost. So, Taylor, coaching experience really showed, but also what stood out for you in this Michigan State victory over the Sooners?
There were multiple things that stuck out. I think one that's important to note for Michigan State, they made more threes than Oklahoma. Oklahoma, a high-scoring team, and when they're not hitting shots, obviously that's going to drop down a bit. Michigan State had 9 3-pointers in that game, opposed to the Sooners' 4 3-pointers. 3 of those 4 came from the one, the only Buddy Hield, who was really the only constant offensive threat on that Oklahoma team during that game. The bench play for Oklahoma was almost irrelevant. And then past that, we talked about offensive and defensive rebounds coming into this game. Really, the end of the game came down when Oklahoma needed another offensive board. The defensive board and the defensive protection in the paint from the Spartans gave them that board, which ended up giving them the game along with Michigan State's very, very good shooting from the line at the end of the game.
Yeah, you touched on Oklahoma's poor shooting from the three-point line. 1 of 8 in the second half, 13% from deep is really going to hurt the Sooners team. And then, like I said, I did say Oklahoma will win because of the second chance points off their offense rebounds. They did get 24 points off of that, but Michigan State, a team that combined for 12 offensive rebounds against Georgia and West Virginia, their 2 previous games. They grabbed 15 this game for 17 second chance points. Those are points that they aren't used to getting, and I think that's really, in my mind, really what helped them get over this Oklahoma team in this low-scoring affair. So, all right, now to the West bracket. The Badgers narrowly escaped with a 79-72 victory to advance to the Elite Eight over a Tar Heel team, Taylor, that really wouldn't go down without a fight.
Sure, yeah. You saw a lot of heart out of UNC in this game, more than I thought they had as a team. But I think just the sheer power and actually some depth here from Wisconsin, not just Frank the Tank. They made that for certain here as Sam Decker had one of his best games. He got a career high in that game in scoring, and he showed that the Badgers are more than just Frank the Tank, which was very important moving forward in this tournament. Really respect UNC's play in this game. I did not expect them to show up how they did.
Yeah, they really, like you said, they just wouldn't go down without a fight, but Hawn, the Badgers were able to eventually put away the Tar Heels to advance to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I agree. NC State, they came out in this first half leading the Badgers. You can give that to Frank the Tank only scoring 4 points in the first 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
Something you definitely don't see from the Badgers. They want to get Frank the Tank rolling, and Sam Decker as well. Those two combined with Nigel Hayes, it's a great front court. But you have Bryce Johnson, Kennedy Meeks, the big guys down low for NC, and they were just able to control what Frank the Tank and Decker were able to do. But unfortunately, in that second half, Frank the Tank and Wisconsin, they found something. They found a formula to get past those defense, and they put up almost 50 points in the second half. I think it was 48. So I think contribute that to a lot of patience by them. A lot of post-ups you saw with Sam Decker because obviously if they wanted Frank the Tank to get out there, but UNC found a counter for that. So Sam Decker came up strong.
Yeah, and if you ask me, looking at the box score, very similar statistics, but the Tar Heels came into the game with the nation's 5th best offensive rebounding percentage with 40%. Again, against Wisconsin, that percentage went from 40 to 28% for just 9 second chance points. Michigan State, like I said earlier, not used to getting those second chance points, did, and that helped them. Now, North Carolina is dependent on those second chance points. They didn't get it, and I think that's really what hurt the Tar Heels, Taylor.
Sure, and I think it's another really cool stat about Wisconsin. When they have the lead going into the last 5 minutes of the game this season, they are 33-0. So you have to keep watching out.
In the last how many minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. That's a big
Clutch
chunk
time.
of time for basketball games.
That's a time where you got to really put a firm grip on your opponent and really finish out the game strong. So, all right, on the other end of the West bracket, the Arizona Wildcats had a really close encounter with Xavier as they punched their ticket to the Elite Eight with a 68-60 win. Really, it was more their athleticism out of Arizona, Hawn, that really helped them to this victory.
Yeah, I agree. It's the athleticism and the stamina of Arizona here. You can see in this last 3 minutes of the game, Arizona had 8 free throw attempts and making 8. That's a lot of muscle memory when you're talking about a game that's low scoring. That means a lot of defense. And to me, defense is more tiring than offense. You know, you got to hustle for the ball. You got to get in the passing lanes, get up for rebounds. And the Xavier Bigs were just a little too tired to rebound, a little too tired to play useful defense, and that allowed Arizona to get to the line, and making 8 for 8 from the free throw line, especially in the last 3 minutes, like we were just talking about. Those clutch shots, being able to perform when you're tired, that's what Arizona was able to do in this game.
Yeah, I look back to my notes last week. I said Arizona's efficient offense and good defense would be too good for Xavier. Well, that was a little wrong, actually. Musketeers actually shot a higher field goal percentage than Arizona. But Arizona, we talk about clutch time, 21-9 run in the final 9 minutes. Was Xavier shooting an ice cold 1 for 9 from the field. And then also, Xavier moved to that 1-3 zone in that second half. Presented Arizona, gave him a little fit, I thought, but when you look at it, actually, Arizona actually scored nearly half a point more per possession against that zone than man-to-man. So I guess the eye test can be a little deceiving, but they were, I guess, able to score against that 1-3 zone.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see because Xavier came to play, and that's not what we predicted at all. I know we went into this matchup, we said this may be the biggest blowout of the next round, and that was definitely not the case. I mean, Xavier I think they deserve to move on with the performance they put on against a much more talented team in Arizona, a much more obviously physically demanded team. And as you said at the end of the game, Hawn, they had more juice, more in the tank to keep going. Xavier kind of died off towards the end. I just want to note Matt Stainbrook. I've never seen him play on the court before. It's something special. It's something special. I mean, he had some more crafty moves than looked like George Niang out there. Yeah.
He does play really well, and like I'm not gonna lie too, that was the first time I was able to actually watch him play,
Yeah.
and it is nice to see someone of that size. You're not really expecting athleticism out of him like people do out of George Niang, but to be able to see that's something cool. So, all right, finally in that South region, guys, Duke in a game which most people thought you were talking about blowouts. This one might be a big blowout. They defeat the Utah 63-57. Taylor, the bench play by Duke really is what helped them propel them to this victory.
Absolutely. The bench play was there, and more importantly, it showed, just like I said earlier, for Wisconsin, it's not the Frank the Tank show. It is not the Okafor show in Duke. He only had 6 points in this game against the 2 huge 7-footers of Utah. A big task for Okafor, but Duke, they picked up the slack, and especially on the defensive side, it's really been a place of concern, that Duke defense throughout the year. This game, they stepped it up, holding them to only 57 points, Utah, and obviously Utah not one of the higher scoring teams. However, 57 points is low for any team in the NCAA tournament. I think the defense stepped up, and they really showed their depth in that game.
Yeah, you talk about the depth. Last week I said Duke's offense would just be too much. Well, Justice Winslow's 21 points made up for, you mentioned Okafor's pathetic 6 points.
Yeah.
He did go up against some length. He will see some length again. We'll talk about that later. But the Utes actually made this a game, I thought, by turning Duke over 14 times and grabbing 18 offensive rebounds. But Utah was only able to get 12 points off of those, 18 offensive rebounds, and just 13 points off of the 14 turnovers. So, Hawn?
Yeah, you both talked about Justice Winslow. He was able to create a lot of shots, or maybe not create a lot of shots, but he hit 3 3-pointers in the second half alone. And if you look at that game, all of the 3-pointers came off a Justice Winslow assist. And I can get into that by saying, you said earlier, Taylor, they wanted to shut down Okafor. And in some way they kind of did with the 6 points. But when you want to shut down a player, that means you're bringing a double team. That means you're bringing, just kind of reject the ball from them. But you're bringing over a second defender a lot of times. What I love to see from this game was Tyus Jones, freshman point guard. To me, his play style might not be similar to this, but to Kyrie Irving, another Duke freshman, his confidence is very similar. Maybe not in play style, but the way he demands attention and knows what he's going to do. He was able to get to the line 10 times, making 9 of them. Great stat for him, being a freshman and all. But he got to the line so many times because of the out-of-position defense by Utah when they wanted to force Okafor out of this game. Forcing him out of the game maybe wasn't the best game plan here, as we can see.
Yeah, I like that Kyrie Irving comparison, but Tyus Jones, I really like watching him play. As a youngster in this game, he's basically new to NCAA basketball, and he really shows no remorse. He doesn't back down from a challenge. He takes it strong to the hole, and he really kind of sometimes he sometimes plays like a veteran, but he does sometimes make those rookie mistakes. So, all right, on the other side, guys, of that South region was the Zags taking care of business against 11-seeded UCLA 74-62.
For me, this one's just easy. The Zags needed to play their style of basketball, their game. They have experience, and they know what they want to do. UCLA shouldn't have even been in this position to be in the Sweet 16. They had an easy road in beating what I thought was an easy SMU team in the first round, and obviously another fluke in the second round with UAB. So, Kevin Pangos just led this team to an easy victory.
Yeah, we mentioned the South region was kind of weak, and it kind of showed. Some team couldn't make a run, and UCLA did. But I said Kyle Wilcher would lead the Zags, to this victory.
Sure.
Well, Karnowski had himself a game with 8 of 11 shooting for 18 points, with 16 of those coming in the paint. And then also, if you look at the Zags overall as a team, they scored 42 points in the paint, which is over half of the points that they scored. And also said rebounding would be a key, with Gonzaga being the second best defensive rebounding team in the nation. They grabbed 27. They averaged, 27. They grabbed 32 to go along with their 18 offensive rebounds. So those, I think, is really what helped Gonzaga to this victory.
Yeah, it feels like I've said it 100 times, and this will be my last time. UCLA is trash, and they shouldn't have been there. They shoot the ball way too much. They had a lot of bad shots in that game.
Absolutely.
They didn't stand a chance against even if Gonzaga had one of their worst games, I think they still would have pulled this one out.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, hey, it's what the NCAA tournament is
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
You
it's
know,
what it's about.
it's about the draw and the run you can make. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break, and after break, we'll look at how Kentucky, Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Duke advanced to the Final Four. All right, Taylor, the first team that punched their ticket to Indianapolis for the Final Four was Wisconsin with an 85-78 win over the Arizona Wildcats, a rematch of last year. So that made it Wisconsin's second straight appearance to the Final Four, and with some clutch plays down the stretch.
Sure, yeah, they were very clutch. I said it in their last matchup we broke down, but again, Wisconsin coming through against an even more talented team in Arizona. We praised them for their high efficiency offense and their big defense down low. Decker came up again with after a great game against UNC, came up with an even better one here, dropping 26 points, his career high in the NCAA tournament of all places in the Elite Eight. And I think you can't really blame Arizona for this loss. It was just simply Wisconsin doing almost everything they needed to right in that game against, it was one great team against one very good team. The great team prevailed.
Yeah, and Wisconsin, you said, being able to make plays down the stretch. I actually thought Arizona was going to be able to win this game. They did, however, was able to stay in the game with a plus 12 advantage in points in the paint at 38-26. But Wisconsin shot 10 of 12 from three behind Sam Decker leading that charge, going 5 for 5 in the second half. And something Arizona really couldn't do that second half that they were able to do in the first half was transition points. They had the 9-0 advantage in the first half. Wisconsin wasn't able to get any points in transition. Turn around the second half, Arizona got 0 points in transition. So.
Yeah, I'm also going to praise Eric Decker, or not Eric Decker. Oh, wow. I'm sorry, Sam Decker here, but that's with 2 Ks.
No relation.
Yeah, that's with 2 Ks. Twitter actually got that wrong. Did you see the trending,
Yeah,
trending
they did
topic?
get the trending topic was wrong. I saw that.
They
That's
spelled
sad,
Decker
isn't it?
like Eric Decker. But here, let's praise.
It's sad that they got that wrong trending on Twitter. It's a little sad in my opinion.
Yeah, but let's praise Eric.
Sam
Decker.
Decker.
Let's praise Sam Decker here. You can see the smile he put on his face after all of his 3-pointers.
Yeah.
He knew these shouldn't fall, but they're falling because Wisconsin, that's how they won this game. I feel like Arizona, they definitely could have made a huge push in this game if not getting deflated from these 3-pointers. And we're talking about Decker here. Kaminsky also did put up another just solid game. Yeah. And if not controlling a game, that's what you want to do to win games with this Wisconsin team. Just have Kaminsky have solid games because he's also demanding attention both beyond the arc, trying to get to the line, especially in the post. It's so hard to defend both Decker and Kaminsky that this Arizona team just didn't have a chance.
Yeah. Sam Decker, Eric Decker, who cares? He doesn't care either. I have a feeling he's just going to put up points anyway. So, all right, guys, the second team to advance to the Final Four was Kentucky. Guys, their closest encounter they've had this postseason with a nail-biting 68-66 victory over the Fighting Irish in what seemed like punches after punches, Hawn, being thrown one back and forth at each other.
Yeah, this was definitely seen in overtime from these teams. The punches, it started out very slow, kind of just jabbing at each other.
Yeah.
Just taking their time just to see what each team does. But even before this, in the last 5 minutes of the game, you can just see it was almost like the top dogs of Kentucky against the underdogs Notre Dame. Big punches coming out. The Harrison twins surprised me this game. I'm not huge on the Harrison twins. I think
I'm not either.
Yeah, I definitely think they have a lot of guards that on this Kentucky team. We're talking about their big men, but their guards also come to play. And the Harrison twins shouldn't play as many minutes as they have, but from one of the Harrison twins, the deep bomb of a 3, one of the biggest shots of the game.
Aaron.
Probably Aaron.
I think it was Aaron. He's known for key shots late in games.
Oh,
Anyway,
especially
so.
last year, that Wisconsin team. I'm excited for that. Maybe we might get a rematch.
Yeah.
But just the big shots from each team. I loved seeing that response from Notre Dame after that 3. Yeah. Almost the same exact spot on the opposite floor. Just shows that this Fighting Irish team, they thought they should have had a higher seed. I didn't, but it definitely just shows that they belonged in that game, and their shots can improve.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame really hung around by outscoring Kentucky 16-6 in points off turnovers and 18-5 in transition. But Kentucky shut down that transition game in that second half. Didn't allow the Fighting Irish to have a transition point in the final 6 minutes. And then, in my opinion, We talked about it earlier. It comes down to who can close out a game. You look at it, Notre Dame, 48-44 with 11 minutes left. Kentucky finishes a perfect 9 for 9 from the field to outscore the Fighting Irish 24-18. And then the inevitable, guys, why Kentucky really won this game. Karl Anthony Towns, I probably tweeted at least 2 or 3 times in the second half. The ball must go through Karl Anthony Towns every time. If not, it's a waste of possession. And it kind of showed, and he really was there for them. It was great to see him actually play with about 4 minutes left. He had 4 fouls. Whether John Calipari was going to play him or how a normal coach would make him sit a little bit, he played him and paid off. So
yeah, you guys hit most of mine. Kentucky making their last 9 shots obviously makes a huge addition. But I think for the record, I thought that last shot by Jerian Grant was going in.
Yeah, I did too.
I
thought it
definitely
wasn't.
did.
I thought it wasn't.
I definitely did.
He had a good look. Obviously not a perfect look. It was a double clutch, a little fadeaway there, but I thought that was falling out of the leading scorer from Notre Dame's hands. It would have been the biggest shot of the tournament if it did.
I reacted like it went in, honestly. I did. I thought it went in.
It was close. It was close. But anyways, Kentucky pulls this one out with clutch plays down the stretch, 9 straight shot made. That you just can't contest with that.
Yeah, when I was watching that game and I was on the edge of, honestly, on the edge of my seat. I haven't felt that way in a while. And he put that double clutch shot up, and most of the time when people put up a double clutch shot, it's short.
Yeah.
I was surprised it was long looking at replays, but I reacted like it went in.
It's close.
So yeah. So all right, that wrapped up the Elite Eight action on Saturday. Continued Sunday as it took overtime for Tom Izzo's Spartans to come away with a 76-70 victory over Rick Pitino's Cardinals in overtime. Like I said, how was Michigan State, Taylor, able to advance to their 9th Final Four, their first since 2010 and their 7th under Tom Izzo?
Well, in this game, I think the simple answer is that they played Louisville, a team that has not been known to shoot well.
Man.
It is a diss.
Elite Eight.
It truly
Everybody
is a diss.
earns their position in the
They
Elite Eight.
earned it, but you look at both of these paths to this place. It's not necessarily the hardest path to get there, with the Villanova at the 1 seed there and Virginia at the 2 seed. And that
UNI.
Yeah, UNI didn't have a chance because they got a bad draw against Louisville. That's a team that Louisville will beat 10 times out of 10 with just the physicality of that. Even if they miss half, they're more than 75% of their shots, which they usually do. And that came in handy here for Tom Izzo and his Spartans. Obviously, it was way closer than I thought it was going to be. Michigan State on a roll. Louisville, not a great shooting team, but the lead changed 11 times, and it came down to under a minute. Louisville was at the free throw line, missed the second shot, would have made it the 12th lead change of that game, which could have favored in the side of Louisville. But it's really truly an improbable run here for Michigan State. But as you said earlier in the show, Hawn, Tom Izzo, Mr. March.
Yeah, Mr. March, honestly, but my key factor, I thought, was the transition points. Louisville, in their first 3 games of the tournament, only allowed 22 total, and they gave up 23 to Michigan State just in 1 game. And then, the obvious, we all know, Louisville not being able to shoot the ball. They shot 36%. Sparty's shot 43%. So Louisville, cool stat that I found, Louisville averaged less than 1 point per possession against Michigan State. 8 out of their 9 losses this season came when they averaged less than 1 point per possession. So, and then also, I want to ask you guys this. Terry Rozier, in my opinion, was just way too aggressive, especially down late. He took the final 3 shots in regulation, and all 3, in my opinion, were just ill-advised, a little aggressive. And then let's fast forward to overtime. They're down 4, minute 14 left. They get the defensive rebound, outlet. I think it's maybe like a 3-on-2 fast break kind of. He kind of pump fakes at the 3-point line. Guy kind of bites it. Now he's in his face, and then he still takes the 3-pointer. Yes, they miss it, and they get 2 free throws, but I just thought he played way too aggressive for someone who went 6 of 23 for the game. It's not like he was feeling it, and he was
forcing it.
He was forcing it, yeah. So, and like I said earlier, with the ball needed to go through Karl Anthony Towns, I thought this game it had to go through Wayne Blackshear and Montrezl Harrell. So I think, in my opinion, I hate to put the blame on one person, but Terry Rozier's late game mentality, his shenanigans, his blasphemous play was just really what also helped
Yeah.
Michigan State
Yeah,
win.
yeah.
I agree. Rozier didn't have the game he needed, that he wanted to, but he almost had the aggressiveness he needed to because let's talk about Blackshear. He had 28 points in this game, shot 4 from 6 from long range, 12 from 12 from the free throw line. That's just numbers you love to see.
Absolutely.
The number you don't love to see is his 4 fouls, which he picked up his 4th late in this game. And unfortunately, I think that's why Rozier needed to be that aggressive. Blackshear only was able to play 39 minutes, which might seem like a lot, but he didn't get to play a lot of that fourth quarter because he know this game might go into overtime, and it did.
Yeah.
He needed to be set. We weren't able to get him in that game as much as we could, even though he was just as hot as he's ever been. Do you know much about Wayne Blackshear? I don't.
No.
Exactly.
No, honestly, I
I mean,
don't.
Freshman coming in
Freshman,
is very
That,
impressive.
that's
yeah.
a game that you want to remember. Obviously, they didn't win though, and it's a game you kind of want to forget now. Just something that Louisville wasn't able to get their hands on was more Wayne Blackshear down the stretch. Unfortunately, they had to settle for Rozier.
Yeah. All right, let's look to the final ticket, guys, that got punched to Indianapolis was when Duke handled Gonzaga 66-52, giving Coach K his 12th Final Four appearance, tying for the most with the legend John Wooden. Hawn, how was Duke able to advance to their 16th overall Final Four appearance?
Gonzaga here, they have the experience. They've been to this tournament. They're in it almost every year. But you said it earlier, Taylor, this Duke talent, they're just strangled with so much talent. This Gonzaga team wasn't able to do anything. And just kind of one key stat that I want to point to here is Kevin Pangos. He's kind of the face of Gonzaga. He's the player that most people know from this Gonzaga team. 0 assists as a point guard.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of shocked at 0 assists from a point guard because I don't know where your ball movement is, where you want your shots to be looking for. You want the ball in Kevin Pangos' hand so he can get to other players. Unfortunately, he just wasn't able to do that, and I think that's definitely a key to why this game wasn't as hyped as it should have been.
Yeah, last week I said it might be a possibility of a 1st to 90 because of these offenses, how they like to put up points. I figured it would be a high-scoring game, but I did say Duke had more offensive weapons, and it showed 4 of their 5 starting players scored double figures, while just 2 for Gonzaga. Also, Gonzaga averaged 40% from behind the arc coming in this game, and they shot a mere 2 of 10 from 3, 20%. That's horrible. That's not going to get it done. And then lastly, I'm a firm believer, I don't know about you guys, that if you make more field goals than your opponent attempts, you're going to be in position to win the ball game. And if you look at that stat, Duke went 6 of 19 and 8 of 8 in that final 5 minutes of the game, and Gonzaga went 6 of 9 overall. So that's always a stat I like to look at. It was something I was taught in high school, and I mean, if you look at most box scores, it usually shows. So
yeah, I like what Hawn said here. I totally agree with that. Where it's talent versus experience. The talent of Duke outweighs the experience of Gonzaga. Gonzaga being a tournament team, have been for quite some time, trying to make a deeper run than they usually do. I think another thing, I really give them a lot of credit though. I mean, you look at the first half, that was a very tight first half. Gonzaga had the lead multiple times, which I didn't see coming in that game. And then again, the defense of Duke stepped it up for this game. Obviously, you look at the final score, 66-52. Like you said, Alan, had no idea it would be that low. Thought it would be a lot higher in that game. Was not the case. You can give a lot of credit to that Duke defense.
yeah. All right, so let's look at the Final Four, guys. The first game will be Duke against the 7th-seeded Spartans Saturday at 6:09 p.m. on TBS, as you see in the graphic. The last time a 7-seed or lower made the Final Four was last year when 7-seeded UConn won the national championship. Will the Spartans, Taylor, follow in UConn's footsteps from last year, or will Duke spoil their hopes?
Duke will spoil their hopes because it won't be March anymore. it's not Tom Izzo's month anymore. It won't be March. And I think it's a talent thing as well. I mean, we talked about this whole show about Duke's talent, how deep they can be. And when you add in that improved defense in the last couple games, it's almost an unstoppable team. The only team I could see stopping them would be a Kentucky team.
So are you saying that maybe Tom Izzo might put in a petition, try to get it signed to move the NCAA championship to the end of March,
Only
March 31st,
only
something like
March.
that.
Yeah. If they lose, who knows? Maybe it'll happen.
I mean, arguably these two coaches are phenomenal, and Coach Izzo and Coach K.
Easily.
You look at their head-to-head matchup. Coach K is 8-1 all-time against Izzo, and 2-1 in the NCAA tournament. If you look at just this year, Duke did beat Michigan State 81-71 back in November. Obviously, they're both not the same team as they are right now. Michigan State heavily improved. Duke has
Also
molded
heavily
together.
improved, yeah.
Absolutely. But Duke made more free throws than Michigan State attempted back in that game in November. 20 of 26 compared to 6 of 10. Again, that's a key stat I like to look
Sure.
at. Also, Duke did outscore Michigan State in the points off turnovers with a huge 24-4 advantage. I think Duke will have to try to duplicate those numbers for a similar result. But as far as Michigan State, they need to obviously do the opposite. They need to take care of the ball, and they need to get aggressive to get to that free throw line. With that being said, I am taking Duke. They have averaged forcing 13 turnovers a game over the last 3 games. They'll do the same, I think, and also capitalize off those turnovers with points. Duke 78-72.
I'm also go with both of you guys. This Michigan State team, you have Travis Trice, Denzel Washington. You're two guys who you want to be hot in those games. But in this last game, they shot 4 for I think 15 from 3-point range, which is a lot of shots for two guys.
Absolutely.
But if they're not able to hit, then who else do you go to? Opposed to this Duke team, we're talking about this talent. This Duke team has so much talent across the board. If you shut down Okafor, you have Justice Winslow come down your throat. You have Tyus Jones finding guys to hit 3-pointers, finding guys to just take advantage of the double teams that Okafor is going to get. And there's just too much talent for Michigan State to kind of key in on, and they're not going to be able to put up too much resistance, I think.
Sure.
So, final score, what do you got?
I'm going to go Duke, topping Michigan State. I don't think it's going to be that high of a scoring game.
Okay.
I think Michigan State does have the power on defense, but when I was talking about Travis Trice and Denzel Washington, if their offense isn't going, then that team's not going. So I'm going to go low scoring. Let's go 63-59.
63 to 59. I got 78-72.
We got 86
You got
to
a high
78.
We got it all covered. I'll take the
Yeah.
middle, you take high, you take low.
There we go.
All right, guys, the other Final Four game, which will follow that game on TBS on Saturday, is Kentucky-Wisconsin. For the second year in a row, Kentucky will take on Wisconsin in the Final Four, as you see. Last year, the Wildcats won 74-73, thanks to, as what we talked about, a clutch three-pointer by Aaron Harrison with 7 seconds left. Will there be a similar result this year, or will Wisconsin get the revenge and advance to the national championship?
I don't think it's going to be similar, but I do not think Wisconsin will get their revenge. I think Kentucky is going to continue the streak. You saw a very high contested game against Notre Dame. Notre Dame, really their best performance in the tournament by far, and that was a loss. But, you see Kentucky, I can't imagine a way that team can lose unless it was that shot made by Jerian Grant at the end of the game. And I don't think Wisconsin will put themselves into that place. I think just the sheer size of Kentucky, along with the talent across the board, outweighs Wisconsin. Wisconsin may have some great breakdowns and great coaching out of Bo Ryan, but John Calipari can come back with the best of them as well. I give this game to Kentucky.
See, we talk about them being able to close it out, which is good, but I don't think Wisconsin will be able to get the revenge. You talk about the length in Kentucky. Frank Kaminsky only had 8 points last year against Kentucky, against a lengthy Kentucky team last year, and I think the Wildcats this year are even longer. But if Wisconsin has any chance of winning, it's going to have to be someone not named Kaminsky. It's going to have to be a Sam Decker. It's going to have to be a Nigel Hayes. You saw last game, Decker, not Eric, I'm sorry. Sam, I'm going to go with
right.
Sam.
2Ks.
With 2Ks, Sam Decker will have to lead the charge to have a chance. They're going to have to also replicate the numbers that they had before offensively because against a Kentucky team, you can't have those defensive lapses. Not necessarily defense, but offensive lapses like West Virginia had, and you saw how ugly it can get. I'm taking Kentucky because of their size. They were tested against Notre Dame, probably their biggest test all season long as far as the magnitude of the game is. and they passed. They passed with flying colors. So I'm going to go with this young Kentucky team. Really just knows how to close out these games. Kentucky 74-68.
Sure.
All right. Yeah, I agree with both of you. I have Kentucky going in this game. But you said earlier you want Decker to step up to this game, and I just don't think he has that power to. You have Kaminsky shut down. You have because of Cauley-Stein there.
Yeah.
And we have Sam Decker, who he's been able to these past games. But you also have Karl Anthony Towns. He's also a huge threat. Both Cauley-Stein and Anthony Towns shot blockers. What are you going to do against those two? So for me, it's going to be if Wisconsin has any chance in this game, Nigel Hayes is going to really have to step up. He's also a mismatch problem for a lot of teams because of the front court size of Wisconsin as well. They are big with Nigel Hayes kind of playing the 3, playing the 4. He is a mismatch for a lot of teams, and I think he will be a mismatch for this Kentucky team, even though they have 2 in the post. Kentucky, they're going to have to deal with Decker and Kaminsky. But I don't see it happening, but that's just kind of the way I feel. Only way Wisconsin's going to be winning this game is Nigel Hayes coming up big. But that being said, I don't think it'll happen. So let's go Kentucky over Wisconsin. Higher scoring than I had last time, obviously. Most teams are 80-75.
80-75. I got 74-68.
I've got 82-73 right in there.
82-73 right in there. All right. So, all right, guys. National championship will be that Monday in 6 days, in 6 days. There's not a time yet has been announced, but guys, whoever wants to take a stab at it first, who do you got?
I'll go for it. I mean, it's not March Madness anymore. I said it about Tom Izzo, so I think the better team, the number 1 overall, number 1 seed, will win this game. Kentucky's got it over Duke. I think it'll be the best game of the tournament. I really hope so. I actually think that as well. From the depth of both teams, we talk about the talent. We talked about it all show for both teams. Seeing that going head to head, it's really exciting to just think about this matchup, Kentucky versus Duke. I hope it's close, but I think Kentucky's going to pull it out to maybe a 6 or 7 point victory.
Yeah, let's look at Duke, and you mentioned it earlier. I waited to this point because I have it. Offensively, I think for Duke, having Tyler Ulis and Devin Booker on the floor instead of the Harrison twins, I think is better for Kentucky offensively. They make smarter decisions, and they don't turn the ball over or take ill-advised shots. In my opinion, I don't know how you two feel, but that's just me. And if you look at the last 2 times Duke made the Final Four, when the host city was Indianapolis, they won those national championship both years.
There you go.
I normally trust those numbers, but Kentucky's size is just too much. I'm sorry.
There it is.
Much like Kaminsky struggled last year, and he will struggle again this year with that size, Jahlil Okafor will struggle as well. I give him 10 to 12 points max. I don't remember how much he had against Utah. It was, I think, 6 or 8 maybe. But I'm going to give him 10 to 12 total. Kentucky's 39-0 perfect season with a 75-67 victory. All
right. Let's look back here. We have Kentucky with we're talking about the bigs that are obviously some first rounders in this NBA draft.
Yeah.
But the one thing I like to look at is you take out Booker from this Kentucky team, where's your 3-point shooting coming from? The Harrison twins aren't great at shooting the ball. I mean, they obviously made their clutch shots, but I don't think they're, they have some range, but they're not, 3-point shooters. They're just playmakers. Booker's a 3-point shooter. You take him out of the game, you don't have a lot of 3-point shooting on this team. Opposed to Duke, where we have Okafor, who definitely demands attention, who needs those double teams. You have Justice Winslow, who's both an in-and-out player. He can do a lot of things. Tyus Jones. I feel like they have a more well-rounded offense. Okay. And who did you guys pick for this game?
Kentucky,
have you made your pick?
Kentucky.
Yeah, come on, dude.
Let's for the sake of the show, I'm gonna go Kentucky.
There you go. I like it.
For the sake of the show, next week we'll see. I have Duke winning here, just because this well-rounded offense. You can't take out a piece from that offense and where it just shuts down a game.
Okay.
You take out Devin Booker. Was Booker from this Kentucky team?
Yeah, Devin Booker.
You take him out,
Ulis.
and
Tyler Ulis can hit threes.
I don't see a lot of scoring down low.
I respect that pick. I respect it.
So I'll go.
You know what? What's your score?
Duke 75-72.
75-72. You're wrong. You only punch arrows.
All right, right here. You see it.
Right here, baby.
Okay.
We got it. Man, I can't wait for that to get it on set next week. All right, that will end this week's Cyclone Insiders. Next week, it will be the season finale of Cyclone Insiders as we recap these 2 Final Four matchups and the national championship. Have a great night, Cyclone Nation.
Kobe.